All right, this week after going over like nutrition and training, I'm going to get into more like the mental aspect with kind of like hobbies and stuff. So having gone through as I'm sitting here getting the good old cat to come on and yeah, make his appearance. You started the video? Is that it? Yeah, is that it? You just started the video? Yeah, you gonna show your face? Yeah, you're like hi. Yep. You gotta be the star of the video, huh? Alright. Go get eaten. Anyway, now that the star of the show is up and he's off on camera, still wanting attention. With hobbies, I'm going to talk about like hobbies on like the mental aspect of it, and I've mentioned in other videos and like in other YouTube channels like the Crackaholics Anonymous that if I had known about the alternatives to AA, I would never have joined AA in the first place. And looking back, all AA ever did for me was basically like chew up time. I would have been like much better off going to like a smart like recovery meetings or something, and for instead of just diving into AA thinking that was the only option, going to things like I said, smart recovery, and then maybe getting professional help at that time to kind of move myself along much faster to get into hobbies to, in a sense, chew up time instead. Now I say that's what AA ultimately was. Looking back, is that that's all it ever really did was help chew up time and everything, help keep me occupied while I got my mind cleared and everything. So with going through like a smart something like smart recovery, I would have looking back, I've really with hindsight really think that I could have made like a much more faster progress and gotten on with life that much faster and getting into like hobbies. And of course I got my D&D books and stuff behind me and everything, so getting back into something like that and everything to, in essence, fill my free time outside of work and everything. I've worked in manufacturing for like a number of years, since getting sober and everything. Putting my getting sober, putting my addiction behind me, however you want to look at it and everything. So working in manufacturing, you usually work Monday through Friday, and getting back into it, like, okay, now I have weekends free. Well, what would I do for my weekends? Of course, like a Saturday for me, it's usually okay, well, I got all my errands and stuff to do. Like, okay, well, I gotta do laundry. I gotta clean my place. I do my cooking and food prep for the upcoming weeks. So I keep that nutrition in check. And then of course I run errands. Okay, I gotta take care of my trash. I got to maybe get gas in my car, and depending on workout schedule, I'm probably going to the gym. But most of the time, and of course getting these videos recorded too, most of the time I'm done at the latest early afternoon. So for instance, right now I'm usually up at 7 o'clock, and usually by 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon I can get everything done. Okay, so I don't usually go to bed until probably about 10:45, 11 o'clock at night. So there's still a good 7, 8, 9 hours that I have. So instead of hey, look, I got all this done, it's time to start drinking. Now it's okay, well, start getting into things like D&D, and of course over this past year I've also gotten into card games like Magic the Gathering. Now I do have an overpowered card game that was released back in the 90s that I would like to get people involved in, but unfortunately I live in a small area where kind of have to stick with the big games like Magic the Gathering. So now I do have fun with it and everything, so that's something I usually do on Saturday nights and everything. So there's stuff that I do get into during the weekends, hobbies that enjoy. So that's how you can spend your time instead of getting into alcohol abuse. And of course these guys always want attention and everything, don't you? Yes. Yeah, you just got to be the star of the show. So then there's that, and of course I do play video games, not as much as I used to. So my brother and I play Final Fantasy 14 every Sunday for a couple hours, and so stuff like that doesn't necessarily consume my life like alcohol did. And that's I think the greatest thing about putting your drug and or alcohol abuse behind you, is that you actually kind of like find out like who you really are. So like not only am I into hobbies like tabletop role playing games like D&D, card games like Magic the Gathering, like board games like Hero Quest, Talisman, and like stuff like that. Video games like Final Fantasy 14. Also like into stuff like history and everything. So you start reading, and of course I got like some of like some of my fiction books back there, like Star Wars ones, and like reading stuff like that, and like you really like and being into history, like reading up like on a lot of history, especially into like the Viking Age. So you find stuff out like that. So that's where you can actually like, in a sense, like not necessarily chew up your time, but actually invest your time in learning and getting into hobbies and stuff like that. And like the great thing is about that is that you end up like in essence growing like the history stuff that I'm into. Like you start listening to podcasts, you start reading books, you start like maybe engaging in like social media groups, and of course, yes, like anywhere, like you kind of have to like wade through some bullshit to actually find the good stuff and everything. Whether it's like books, like podcasts, like social media groups, like on like a Facebook, Instagram, or wherever, you're going to find the good, the bad, and the ugly, no matter where you go. So like, and the great thing is like after time you start learning like which like when it comes to social media, which groups are okay. These ones are problematic. These ones are trouble, and like these ones are good. The same thing like the books. Like okay, so these authors are kind of like associated with not so great groups and everything, so like, you kind of have to stay away from those authors. But these authors over here, okay, maybe you got like a great author, like I know like Scott Cunningham is an author for like a lot of like the metaphysical like stuff and everything. So you can come, he's good with like doing like a lot of like in essence like college 101 books for like topics like that. So you might find like books that are like that, and like of course, you're not necessarily going to become like a PhD level expert on a specific topic by just like in essence reading on like your spare time or listening to podcasts and stuff. What it does do though is it makes you knowledgeable. Like, oh hey, look, I heard about this, and it gives you the chance to actually like articulate better and ask better questions, instead of just coming like, oh hey, look, this is the answer. Like, hey, look, this is like this is something I came across. Like, is there like you actually ask like people that, like I said, that have PhD level like expertise in it? Like, hey, is there any validity into this? They could say, oh yes, and they of course they could all say, well no, and then they could go on a whole tangent, like a 15-20 minute tangent on like why it's either good or bad and everything. So like again, like you could be like an enthusiast and not necessarily like, again, not necessarily an expert. You could be at the level of like knowledgeable and be able to like actually hold like an intelligent conversation on like a specific topic and everything. So like anything. So like the history, like I said, I'm into the Viking Age. My dad's into like the Revolutionary War. You might end up finding that you're into the Civil War, or you might be into like the Roman Empire, Chinese civilization, and like their like early dynasties and stuff like that. So like there's like even South American like civilizations, like the Aztecs, the Mayans, like the Incas, and or you could be into like African history and be able to like start reading up on that and like learning the history behind like, oh hey, here's like what happened like leading up to like the 16th and 17th century. This is what happened during then. Like you'd be, or like a specific time frame in history, and be able to talk about that. And then of course you're going to find like the examples I use, like you're going to find that like you have like multiple interests and everything. It's not just like you're like a one-trick pony. Like, oh, I'm only into like Civil War history, and that's all I'm about. Well, chances are you're going to be a lot more. You're going to have a lot more to you. You're not just like a shallow puddle. You're going to be like someone who's like pretty much like as deep as like a lake or something in the stuff that you're going to be into. Now, the only way to kind of find out about that, like once you put your alcohol and or drug abuse behind you, is to kind of start engaging in stuff and kind of like, well, what am I into? Like start getting yourself out, like am I into like movies, like movie history? Am I a movie buff and everything? Like quote movies and maybe TV shows too. Quote all of them I can, and or I might be someone who is into maybe witchcraft books, or maybe mythology books, or maybe I'm into I want to learn all about I can about Christianity, or or Shinto, or any number of any other religions, or you could be into learning about science, you pick start listening to science podcasts, you start picking up some books and start reading on specific topics, and you might build yourself up to be able to read articles and stuff about quantum physics, and be able to well, yeah, I'm not necessarily a quantum physicist who's actually working in the field and everything. It's just something I have an interest that I'm reading up on, and again, me with being a history buff, especially with the Viking Age. Hey, look, here's something that I can hold a conversation with, and go to experts and ask well, hey, look, here's the stuff that I've come across, have as my nose itches. You're able to get into specific topics and start asking better questions once you start reading more, listening to more podcasts, and coming across stuff and engaging in stuff. And you're going to probably meet a lot better people. And so that's one of the things why I say I go on about all these alternatives, and all these stuff, what you can do, physical training, going to the gym, getting your nutrition in check, getting into these hobbies and stuff, you have control over that stuff, and but by going to AA, you kind of lose that agency, because you're constantly being told that you're not only powerless, but you're completely hopeless and worthless too. So if you want to stay stuck in that kind of mentality where oh well, I have no interest outside of going to AA, and I'm not going to necessarily find out what I'm into, by all means stay in AA. Now of course, I know there are probably going to be a bunch of people eventually that are going to come in defend that, okay, well then if you have to defend your position and not consider the alternatives for the other people that actually want to, go right ahead. And obviously this message is not for you, because ultimately my message is for the people that are like me, in that when you think that either AA is the only option, so and to give alternatives to AA, so you're not directed into it. You can get into instead of going here to AA, you can go over here to Smart Recovery, Sinclair Method, SOS, whatever it is. Or that's one group of people. The second group of people is that maybe you've been in AA for any length of time, maybe a year or two, or maybe a decade or 15 years or something. I'm not getting anything out of this anymore. And this is here's some alternatives for you to kind of in a sense get yourself out of AA and on with your life and everything. So of course that's kind of a rant to end this video on how to find get into hobbies and stuff, and kind of reiterating that idea and concept to kind of move past your alcohol and or drug abuse.